The smoke above Nerian-4 drifted in long, mournful ribbons across the lavender sky that once symbolized peace, now stained with the scorched signatures of orbital bombardments. For decades, the Nerian Coalition had held the line against outside threats, but nothing had prepared them for the arrival of the Rauthik Swarm, an extragalactic empire driven by cold logic and an unyielding hunger for expansion. Commander Lyra Venn, decorated officer of the Nerian Defense Force, stood on the shattered balcony of Outpost Horizon, watching drones track overhead like predatory birds. Half the outpost lay in ruin, the other half clung desperately to life. "We've lost 3 more districts," reported Officer Talon, his voice trembling despite years of battlefield experience. "Our orbital shield is down to 20%. The Rauthik will breach within hours." Lyra tightened her grip on the railing. "Evacuate all civilians to the subterranean bays. Military personnel to defensive positions. We hold until the last breath." Talon hesitated. "Commander, with all due respect, we can't win." Lyra's mandible tightened, her species equivalent of a clenched jaw. "We don't have to win. We just have to survive long enough for help to arrive." But even as she said the words, she wondered if help still existed. For centuries the Nerians had been alone, intelligent, peaceful, advanced, but isolated deep in the Persean spur. Their long-range communications arrays had been destroyed in the first Rauthik strike, severing any hope of interstellar aid. Rumors persisted of distant civilizations, some friendly, others hostile, but none had ever emerged from myth into reality. And now, as Lyra stared out at the Rauthik carriers darkening the horizon, the reality struck her. No one is coming. That truth cracked something inside her, until the sky itself split apart. A rift, artificial, jagged and pulsing with blue-white energy, opened above the outpost. The Rauthik carriers halted, recalibrating their formation. Lyra shielded her eyes as metallic shapes emerged from the bright tier. They weren't Rauthik. They weren't Nerian. They moved like predators, sleek, angular, purposeful. Ships, smaller than Rauthik dreadnoughts but bristling with weaponry, poured through by the dozens, forming into tight assault formations. Their hulls bore a language Lyra had never seen, sharp and angular. Talon gasped. "Commander, are those—" "I don't know," she said, awe replacing fear, "but they're not Rauthik." The newcomers wasted no time. Blue-white streaks of energy lanced from their guns, slicing through Rauthik hulls with surgical precision. The assault was brutal, efficient, one-sided. Within minutes, half the Rauthik fleet was burning. Lyra frowned. Whoever these newcomers were, their tactics were ruthless, merciless, nothing like the diplomatic civilizations of old legends. "Identify them," she ordered. But the truth revealed itself moments later, when one of their ships broadcast a signal across the surface of Nerian-4. The message appeared in universal script, translated automatically. "Human Alliance Rescue and Intervention Force, we are here to assist." Humans? A species Lyra had only heard of in near-mythical tales from interstellar drifters. But if those stories were true, then humanity was not peaceful. They were not gentle. They were fighters, brutal survivors from a harsh world, a species feared even by ancient empires. And they had just appeared over Nerian-4. Second arrival of the Ruthless. The first human boots touched Nerian-4's soil an hour later. A dropship crackled with engines as it lowered into the courtyard of Outpost Horizon. Dust swirled in violent spirals around it. Lyra, accompanied by her officers, approached cautiously. The ramp hissed open. A line of armored soldiers emerged. Tall, imposing, wrapped in matte black exosuits. Their helmets gleamed with red visors like the single unblinking eyes of predators, but the man at the front removed his helmet. He looked shockingly soft compared to his armor. Smooth skin, brown eyes, closely cropped hair, a face both strange and captivatingly intense. "I am Captain Adrian Holt, Human Alliance," he said, voice deep and rasp-edged. "We received your distress signal." Lyra blinked. "Distress signal? Our arrays were destroyed." Holt's lips curved slightly. "One of your scout ships broadcast an automated SOS years ago. The message finally reached Alliance base. We came as fast as we could. You crossed the gulf of space just to help us? He shrugged. Humans have a saying, no one fights alone. Yet Lyra could not overlook the way human soldiers scanned the area, weapons drawn, movements precise. These were not rescuers driven by compassion. They were tacticians, warriors conditioned for violence. Still they were hope. We owe you our survival, Lyra said. But the Rauthik will return in force. Their swarm numbers in the millions. Good, Holt said. We prefer a challenge. Lyra stared at him. You don't understand. The Rauthik consume entire star systems. And humans, Holt answered, have survived extinction-level wars on our own planet. We didn't evolve claws or armor. We evolved something better. And that is? Lyra asked quietly. Holt smiled, and it was not comforting. Strategy, anger, and the refusal to ever die quietly. Third, preparing for the unthinkable. Over the next 2 days, humans and Nerians worked side by side to reinforce the planet's remaining defenses. Human engineers deployed pulse cannons, railgun arrays, and shield augmenters that outclassed anything Lyra had seen in her lifetime. But it was the soldiers themselves who astonished her most. Human infantry trained with frightening discipline. They moved like a single organism. Their tactics were aggressive, even reckless, but somehow always calculated. At night, Lyra watched them run combat simulations, pushing their bodies to extremes. They're dangerous, Talon whispered, standing beside her one evening. They're effective, Lyra corrected. Is there a difference? Lyra did not answer, because she wasn't sure. During briefings, Captain Holt revealed the larger truth. The human alliance had grown rapidly in the past few centuries, united by necessity. After surviving multiple interstellar conflicts, they had adopted a doctrine: defend allies at all costs, destroy existential threats entirely, not stop them, not negotiate, destroy. Lyra felt a mix of admiration and fear. On the third day, long-range sensors detected it. A shadow across the stars, the main Rauthik armada, larger than anything Lyra had ever seen, thousands of ships, looming like an approaching storm. We're outnumbered 50-1, Talon whispered. Holt studied the readings calmly. Numbers are irrelevant. We'll break their spine before they reach orbit. How? Lyra demanded. Holt tapped a holographic point near the largest Rauthik carrier. By cutting off the head. Fourth, the battle no one expected. The assault began at dawn. The Human Alliance fleet launched from orbit, engines burning blue through the morning sky. Lyra watched from her command tower as the ships angled upward like arrows unleashed from a cosmic bow. The sky ignited with fire. Human destroyers tore through Rauthik formations, drifting around enemy blasts with impossible precision. Railguns fired slug rounds that punctured hulls like paper. Plasma lances carved through carriers. The Rauthik retaliated, unleashing swarms of autonomous drones. But human point defense systems lit up the atmosphere, shredding them by the thousands. Still, the Rauthik numbers were overwhelming. Even the humans struggled to hold the line. Then Holt's voice crackled through Lyra's comm. Commander Venn, prepare for ground impact. They're deploying shock troopers. Lyra's blood chilled. Rauthik shock troopers were bioengineered monstrosities, towering, muscular, with claws capable of rippling through steel. Minutes later, the creatures crashed onto Nerian -4 like meteorites, bursting through buildings, roaring towards civilian shelters. Lyra rallied her troops. All units on me. Do not let them breach Sector 7. Her soldiers fought valiantly, but Rauthik shock troopers were relentless. One of the beasts lunged at Lyra, its claws inches from her throat, until a barrage of gunfire tore the creature apart mid-air. Human soldiers charged into the fray. Their leader, Lieutenant Kara Briggs, wielded a heavy plasma rifle almost her own height. Commander, heard you could use a hand. Lyra nodded breathlessly. Your timing is appreciated. Briggs' grin was feral. Let's clean house. The humans waded into the creatures with fearless brutality, rolling under claws, firing point blank using close combat blades that cut through chitin with violent efficiency. They fought like beings who had evolved not on a peaceful world, but in a crucible of constant danger. Within minutes the shock troopers lay dead. But the battle was far from over. Above, the Rauthik main carrier breached the atmosphere, even with half its hull burning, and unleashed a massive gravitational weapon. It would crush the entire outpost, human and Nerian alike. Lyra stared upward in horror as the air itself distorted, gravity rippling like invisible waves. "Halt!" she yelled into her comm. "We're about to be annihilated." "Not if we get inside that carrier first," Holt replied. "Prepare for hull infiltration." Lyra blinked. "Infiltration? Captain, you can't possibly—" But the humans already had a plan. Fifth into the heart of the swarm, a small team of elite human soldiers boarded a stealth corvette and shot toward the Rauthik carrier. Lyra insisted on joining them, despite Holt's objections. "You're not human," he warned as she strapped into her harness. "This mission is borderline, suicidal, even for us." "All the more reason," she replied, "that I should be there to represent my people." Holt gave a grudging nod. The corvette pierced through the carrier's weakened shields and embedded itself in the hull with a thud. The door blew open. What greeted them was a nightmare: organic metal corridors, pulsing like veins, dripping with bioluminescent fluids. The walls shifted subtly, as if breathing. Rauthik drones screeched and charged. Human soldiers fired methodically, each shot placed with precision. Lyra fought alongside them, her pulse blaster cutting down drones as they swarmed. "What's the objective?" she shouted over the din. "We destroy the grav core," Holt answered. "It's powering the planetary weapon." They carved their way through the grotesque interior until they reached a towering chamber where a glowing sphere of warped gravity pulsed like a beating heart. But guarding it were 3 Rauthik primarchs, 10-foot-tall warlords with limbs like razors and armored plating the color of dried blood. One spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "Humans, the legend returns." Holt raised his rifle. "We're not legends. We're the reason your kind fled our galaxy 1,000 years ago." Lyra whipped her head toward him. "You never mentioned that." "No time to explain," Holt muttered. "The Primarchs attacked. The battle was brutal. Humans fought with savage ferocity, ducking under talons, firing upward, using explosives that rattled the very chamber." Lyra supported them, focusing her fire on joints and exposed tissue. One Primarch impaled a human soldier. The others did not falter. Another tore through Briggs's arm, but she used her remaining hand to shove a grenade into its chest. The explosion painted the chamber with purple gore, but the final Primarch struck Holt, sending him crashing into the wall. It loomed over him, ready to deliver a killing blow, until Lyra leapt forward, driving her plasma blade deep into the creature's neck. The Primarch spasmed and collapsed. Holt stared up at her, breathing hard. "Didn't know Nerians could fight like that." "We can," she replied, "when we have hope." Together, they planted charges around the grav core. "Detonation in 15 seconds, Briggs said. "Everyone move," Holt commanded. They sprinted back through the corridor as explosions rippled behind them. The corvette detached seconds before the entire carrier imploded, collapsing inward as gravity tore it apart. The gravitational weapon fizzled into harmless light. Below, the battlefield fell silent. The Rauthik fleet, now leaderless, disoriented, began to retreat. Human ships pursued. They did not show mercy. 6, when the smoke finally cleared. Hours later, the skies above Nerian-4 were clear. The Rauthik had fled the system, their armada shattered, their confidence destroyed. Lyra stood with Holt on the edge of outpost horizon, surveying the wreckage. "You saved us," she said quietly. "I don't know how to repay that." Holt shook his head. "We didn't come for payment. We came because no species should face extinction alone." She studied him carefully. "Humans are different than I expected." He smirked. "Violent?" "Relentless," she corrected. "But also loyal." He looked out at the horizon. "Our history taught us that cooperation is the only way any species survives long term. Human aggression isn't just destruction, it's protection. When we choose to fight for someone, we don't stop." Lyra nodded slowly. "Then perhaps this is the beginning of something new." https U2WESL-WNLZT4 Who sequel Toyar 61 UOIHW7 USFQ. Defeat seemed inevitable until ruthless human soldiers joined the fight, an alliance built not on fear, but on shared survival. Human ships descended to assist with reconstruction. Nerian citizens watched them with awe and curiosity. For the first time in generations, hope burned brighter than fear. Holt extended his hand. Lyra placed her four-fingered grasp around it. "Welcome to the future, Commander Venn," he said. "And welcome to Nerian-4, Captain Holt," she replied. "May our people stand together in the battles to come," because everyone knew the Rauthik would return. But next time, the galaxy would not be divided. It would be united, and humanity, brutal, brilliant, unstoppable humanity, would be leading the charge.